AI is still a relatively new tool. It only came out in November of 2022 in the format that we are familiar with when OpenAI released ChatGPT into the public. And it very quickly became viewed as something that is going to be quite the disruptor in education. But because AI is still such a new tool, there's a lot we don't know about it. I like to compare it a lot to social media and devices. I was part of a high school program that really pushed the idea of one-to-one computing to get devices into the hands of students in order to help them do all of the things that we have to do as we go through our education. Looking back, it's interesting and probably sad to note that there wasn't as much research about the effects of screen time and devices, or at least not long-term research to know what we were getting into. And so now we're kind of at the same place with AI. We don't really have long-term research. It's not possible to have done it because we haven't had these tools long enough. But even so, there are a few studies that were relatively recent that try to give us some important insights into how this technology actually affects our brains, and more importantly, how it affects our ability to learn. The first study that I'm going to show you is from the University of Pennsylvania, and it looked at high school math students. They compared three groups in this. They had a baseline group of students not using AI. They had one that were using AI to get direct answers, and one that was using it as a tutor. And so the fascinating thing about this is while they had the tools, both of the AI groups outperformed the baseline group. But that seems, pretty straightforward. If I'm asking for answers, I'm going to get the correct results. What is more fascinating is what happens when the researchers took the AI away. The group that used AI as a tutor maintained a lot of their gains and showed some real retention, but those who were using it for direct answers actually dropped below the baseline group. And so why that happens, that's where the second study that I'm sharing from MIT's Media Lab, they looked at the brain connectivity that happened while students were writing essays. And they showed that students writing with ChatGPT showed the weakest brain connectivity. So think of brain connectivity as how the different parts of your brain communicate in order to build memory and integrate ideas. The students that wrote without any tools showed the strongest, most distributed brain activity because they were doing the actual intellectual heavy lifting. The ChatGPT group reported the lowest sense of ownership, and their writing sounded generic, almost robotic. When asked to write again without the tool, they struggled to recall the ideas, and they showed significantly lower brain activity. And this is what researchers call cognitive debt. When we offload tasks that we are still mastering to an AI, we deprive ourselves of the productive struggle that actually builds these skills. We're essentially letting the machine do all of the heavy lifting while our own brain muscles atrophy. So how do we use this information? The goal is to think with generative AI and not let it think for you. If we're offloading tasks, we miss the chance to develop our own unique expertise. So in the end, you want to demonstrate that you add value beyond what the machine can do. Use AI as a partner, build your foundational skills independently, and you'll develop a sense of ownership that AI can't replicate. And I think this is the hardest part for us to really wrap our heads around in the educational space. And that is because so much of what we do seems to be focused on the output. And I think that's what students think about school. It's like, I go to school to get school done, to do the assignments, to produce the paper, to produce the presentation, to answer the questions. We really need to find a way to reframe that idea Because if AI is used as a tutor and pair that with an inquisitive mind, a questioning person, someone that's pushing and looking for answers, and then doing the work of researching those, AI can be an amazing tool. But it also is that shortcut to just having something output. And one of the key things that I thought about as I was putting this together is there is a difference. It is possible for AI to be perfectly useful to someone who has already mastered the skills needed to do whatever task they're doing. And that's really that kind of chicken or egg scenario that we're constantly fighting in our educational spaces is I need you to learn some of these things and to master some of this before I can give you this tool. I think of my background as mathematics teacher and how I would constantly have students go through things doing it the long way when I knew quite well that over here is this calculator that I can throw this stuff into a matrix and this can spit out answers right away. But by going directly to the technology, it really removed the ability for students to think through logically, like, how is this working? Why is this working? And then appreciate the technology and be able to use it, not just to get an answer, but understanding what went through that machine, how this quote unquote black box is producing that content. So hopefully this gives you some ideas about AI's usefulness in learning. I do find myself firmly in the middle ground. On one hand, I think there are parts of learning that AI cannot be a part of, but there's part of the learning process that maybe it needs to be a part of. But that's a decision for every educator and, more importantly, for each student to make for themselves.